I'm Dreamer Butler, 29, a Sacramento restaurant manager. It was Thanksgiving, the annual family trial. Then the email hit, your corporate card is frozen. Suspicious activity. My stomach dropped. That platinum card was the lifeline of my whole asset. Seconds later, I saw her post, Amber, my golden sister, smiling from the Maldives. And in her hand, raised like a trophy? My frozen corporate card. The realization hit, my family didn't just want my generosity, they stole my integrity and my solvency. Thanksgiving had just turned into a battlefield. How do you confront a family that celebrates your ruin? And can I protect my employees' livelihood before this corporate fraud destroys everything I've built with my determination? My family, the DeVisas, saw me as too independent. My mother, Margaret, and my sister, Amber, believed success meant staying close, clinging to old family dynamics and seeking communal approval. My determination to build a life in Sacramento, managing my own restaurant empire, was viewed with deep suspicion. To them, I was the one who abandoned connection. Amber, the golden child, received all the approval simply for staying put. Despite my financial solvency and professional asset, my achievements were dismissed as luck. Margaret often said, "You manage a restaurant, not a company." Their judgment was clear. I was the ATM of the family, not a daughter. How long can you endure being dismissed as just luck when your whole life is built on hard skill and precision? And what happens when the ATM decides to shut down? Despite building a successful brand from scratch, a monument to my determination and skill, my achievements were deliberately diminished. To Margaret and Amber, my success was merely a side effect of good timing, not precision or relentless practicality. I was constantly reminded that I chose a low-class career. But while they dismissed my professional integrity, they were quick to exploit my financial solvency. I existed within the family dynamics primarily as an ATM of the family, not a daughter, not a peer, but a resource to be tapped. I was the source of emergency funds, down payments, and now, apparently, luxury vacations. They took my money but ignored the effort. They never saw the 18-hour shifts, the fear of recession, or the calculated strategy required to keep a small business alive. They saw my asset as free money, earned effortlessly. Their judgment was toxic, and their connection was purely transactional. Now, they hadn't just taken money, they'd committed fraud that could ruin my employees' lives. Was this Thanksgiving the day I finally sacrificed the toxic pretense of family connection for the sake of my professional integrity and the people who truly relied on my solvency? I stared at my childhood home, trying to rehearse gratitude speeches in my head. Be grateful, dreamer. This time, you'll set a boundary. I tried to convince myself this dinner wouldn't end in the usual emotional manipulation and demands on my financial asset. A desperate spark of hope remained. But the image of Amber's smiling face, holding my frozen corporate card like a trophy for grand theft, shattered the pretense. This wasn't manipulation, it was betrayal. That clarity was the resistance I needed to finally stop seeking their hollow approval. I knew I had to walk in, but the strategy of silence was no longer an option. Could one Thanksgiving dinner finally push me to choose my own integrity over the toxic connection I called family? And what price would I pay for that self-determination? I took my seat, the polite smile fixed. Then Margaret started. She publicly thanked me for helping the family financially during these trying times. It wasn't praise, it was a loud declaration of my role as the family ATM. I felt the familiar wave of humiliation wash over me, but this time, it was mixed with a cold, hard determination. Amber, sitting directly across, confirmed the betrayal. She smiled, bragging about her much-needed Maldives trip, paid entirely with the corporate asset. It's all about self-determination, right, dreamer, she chirped. No one, absolutely no one, noticed the barely contained anger and frozen expression on my face, cemented by their casual judgment. My integrity was being sold off for cheap approval and a tropical vacation. How long can I maintain this fragile boundary of silence when their entitlement is so openly mocking the very skill and solvency that provides their luxury? I swallowed my anger, along with a dry bite of turkey. For months, I'd worked double and triple shifts, applying every ounce of my determination and skill to keep my restaurant asset not just alive, but thriving during a brutal recession. That was my precision. Yet at this table, under the oppressive weight of their judgment and family dynamics, I was treated like a piggy bank with a pulse, a source of endless solvency that required no maintenance or respect. My sacrifice was systematically turned into Amber's exotic vacation. The injustice was suffocating. My blood was boiling, but I held my tongue, waiting for the perfect strategy to strike back with the same precision they used to inflict pain. What final, small act of betrayal will break my restraint and unleash the full force of my corporate triumph against the family that never saw my worth? The ultimate slight came when Margaret, my mother, raised a glass. I thought, this is it. Maybe they'll acknowledge the determination and skill it took to build my asset. Instead, she toasted Amber, to Amber, who was finally taking time for herself after years of struggle. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. My own quiet, genuine triumph, the solvency and security I fought for with precision, was not only invisible but actively used to highlight Amber's manufactured victimhood. My success was a ghost, my sacrifice was her luxury vacation. The lie of family connection and conditional approval shattered completely. I realized the profound despair that drove their need to diminish me. But I had my proof, the ultimate clarity, a frozen corporate card linked to a Maldivian resort. My silence was about to end. The table was set for Thanksgiving, but the main course was about to be the harsh, cold truth. When the silence finally breaks, will my confrontation lead to my self-determination and peace, or will I finally lose my integrity in a desperate fight for recognition? The table chatter resumed, a hollow celebration of Amber's imagined triumph. I was a ghost at my own table, but my silence was deceptive. My phone buzzed again, not an alert this time, but a detailed statement. The timing was a gift, the final strategy one needed to break their toxic dynamics. I opened the document. $300,000 in withdrawals. My pulse spiked, not from panic, but from the realization of their sheer, criminal entitlement. I gripped the phone, scrolling through the evidence, the precision of their fraud laid bare. I stood up, slowly, holding the phone in front of me like the ultimate, undeniable judgment. The heavy atmosphere of conditional approval lifted slightly as every head turned. I felt a new light of self-determination, a cold, hard clarity replacing the years of despair. The power of the truth was finally mine. The clock had run out on my silence, but starting this confrontation meant destroying the last fragile thread of family connection. Can I maintain my professional integrity and solvency when my own mother tries to bury the truth? And what is the real cost of choosing your business over your blood? Margaret, seeing the shift in dynamics, attempted to regain control. Not at the table, honey, she chided, her voice thick with fake authority. That phrase, not at the table, had been the family's weapon for years, silencing every genuine concern or critique of their toxic judgment. I took a deep, shaky breath, fighting the old, ingrained urge to retreat. If I spoke, the entire fragile, manufactured image of family connection would shatter. I was wrestling with years of learned deference, the pain of past betrayal, and the faint, foolish hope that they would, just this once, show integrity. But the $300,000 charge was the decisive factor. That wasn't about family approval. It was corporate theft against my asset. My self-determination, and my employees' solvency, depended on this moment of cold, hard clarity. I tightened my grip on the phone. The silence was over. The next words out of my mouth would define my future, sealing their despair and finally claiming my own power. Will I let my determination lead me to a justified, corporate triumph, or will the overwhelming pressure of blood connection force me back into silence and ruin? I didn't speak immediately. This pause was my strategy. I needed them to feel the weight of my silence, the sudden shift in the family dynamics. I scrolled deliberately through the transactions, first-class flights, five-star resorts, shopping sprees. The sheer scale of their theft against my professional asset was staggering. Each expense was a direct blow to the solvency of my business. This wasn't just pocket change, this was months of payroll, deferred maintenance, and the retirement asset I'd fought for. I applied the same cold precision I use in high-stakes negotiations, noting dates, locations, and vendors. The full clarity of the consequences hit me. Amber's fraud could destroy my business and leave my employees without paychecks right before the holidays. My entire triumph, my self-determination, was on the line, threatened by my own family's toxic entitlement and criminal determination. I looked at Amber's smug, innocent face and Margaret's expectant, judging glare. Any flicker of remaining hope or longing for their approval died. I was no longer fighting for my connection to them. I was fighting for my integrity, my livelihood, and the livelihoods of my team. My mind was running the final strategy loop: confrontation, evidence, and exit. No tears. No begging. Only facts and boundaries. I printed the screen on my phone, saving the digital asset of evidence. I had prepared for this moment of despair with years of self-reliance and emotional distance. The silence was deafening, amplified by the heavy holiday cutlery. They waited for me to sit down, to apologize, to yield to their dynamics. They had no idea I was about to serve them the harshest dish of the night, the corporate theft report, straight from my determination and professional skill. The moment of truth was here, but would this act of self-determination, of choosing my integrity over the illusion of family connection, finally give me the peace I'd been denied since childhood? Or would my mother's guilt trip prove more powerful than a $300,000 corporate theft charge? I showed them the screen. The evidence was irrefutable. This is $300,000 in corporate theft, specifically for Amber's Maldives trip, I stated, my voice measured and fueled by cold precision. Amber's smug look vanished, replaced by panic. Margaret's face went white. Margaret's immediate strategy was the classic family weapon: emotional gaslighting. She put a hand to her chest, tears instantly welling up. "It's Thanksgiving, dreamer, don't ruin it," she wailed, collapsing the entire corporate crime into a minor social faux pas, a disruption of their precious dynamics. Amber stepped in with her entitlement. "It's just money, dreamer. You'll earn it back with your little restaurant asset." She scoffed. "Why are you being such a dramatic bitch? It's not like you need our approval anymore, right?" The air in the room turned cold, thick with their collective judgment. Their reaction provided the ultimate clarity. They weren't just guilty, they believed they were entitled to my asset, my solvency, and my silence. They valued their holiday pretense more than my integrity and the job security of my 20 employees. The final thread of my connection to them snapped. Margaret's attempt to paint me as the villain who ruins family time was their last desperate act. She tried to leverage past pain and present guilt to force my retreat. But I felt no despair, only a burning determination to protect my true legacy, my business, from their destructive need for power. My careful strategy had worked. By confronting them with irrefutable financial precision, I had exposed the core toxicity of their dynamics. They didn't see a daughter, they only saw the disappearance of their free corporate asset. Their judgment was now irrelevant. I had the evidence, the clarity, and the cold determination. But how do you completely walk away from the table when your own mother is crying and begging you to maintain the lie? And will I find the final words to sever this toxic connection forever? My voice started as a tremor, catching on the years of resentment. Then, my determination took over, making it steady and cold. "That money wasn't yours, Amber," I stated, holding their gaze. "It was the business's asset, the solvency that pays my team's rent and feeds their families. You stole from my employees. The silence was total. Forks froze mid-air, gravy dripping onto the white linen. For the first time, their entitlement cracked. They saw not a daughter, but a corporate threat, a mirror reflecting their criminal judgment. That clarity was intoxicating, the ultimate weapon against their toxic dynamics. Margaret pushed her chair back, her face twisted in despair. We're family, dreamer. We support each other. Where is your connection? Where is the unconditional approval you owe us? You are tearing us apart with your business talk. Think about what you are doing. She pleaded, desperately throwing her old weapons. I looked directly at her, letting the silence linger. No, I said, the single word cutting through her drama. Family doesn't use corporate cards for luxury vacations. Family doesn't commit corporate identity theft. You betrayed my integrity and threatened the only legacy I care about. My decision for self-determination was absolute. I picked up my purse and retrieved my coat from the foyer closet, the movement deliberate, unhurried. Every step was a final boundary being drawn, marking the end of my silent endurance and the start of my emotional solvency. Amber finally spoke, her voice small, stripped of her usual entitlement. Don't do this, dreamer. Where will I go? You know I rely on you. The plea was pathetic, confirming she never sought a sister, only an asset. Her reliance was the source of my lifelong pain. I paused at the door, turning back only to deliver the decisive final blow. My voice was calm, powerful, fueled by years of suppressed determination. I'm done pretending family means forgiveness for criminal behavior. My strategy is to protect my business. Good Thanksgiving. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out and pulled the heavy oak door shut behind me, the sound a definitive final chord on their toxic dynamics. The noise was symbolic, the sound of shattering hope, but also the sound of claiming my ultimate triumph. The chill of the night air felt clean. My hands were shaking, but my head was clear. I reached for my phone, not to check Amber's posts, but to dial my lawyer. My revenge wouldn't be dramatic yelling, it would be cold, hard, legal precision. I had chosen my business and my integrity over my blood. But what kind of triumph is built on the ruins of your own family? And how do you find peace when your ultimate act of self-determination involves calling the police on your own sister? Margaret saw my coat. The panic escalated to a raw, emotional peak. She scrambled, grabbing my arm, forcing me back toward the table. You can't just walk out on us, dreamer. Not now. We are family. She hissed, her eyes wide with fear, not of the crime, but of the public judgment. I wrenched my arm free, turning to face them one last time. My face was a mask of cold, hard determination. No, I replied, the word clean and final. Family doesn't commit corporate identity theft. Family doesn't jeopardize the solvency of their own child's asset for a luxury vacation. Amber's earlier entitlement crumbled into spiteful rage. She screamed that I was jealous of her connection to Margaret, that I had always been the cold, calculating bitch who only cared about her restaurant. Her words, usually so effective, bounced off the shield of my absolute clarity. I saw the despair in their eyes, the realization that their control, their manipulation, their conditional approval, had no power over me anymore. My integrity, the thing they always mocked, was now my greatest strength, allowing me to draw an ultimate boundary. You used my determination to build a future, and then you tried to steal that future, I finished, my voice rising slightly. You stole the legacy I was trying to build, not for myself, but for the people who actually value my skill. That makes you criminals, not family. Margaret lunged forward one last time, a desperate attempt at physical connection. I stepped back, avoiding her touch as if it were toxic. I grabbed the front door handle. The heavy wood cold under my fingers. The scene was chaotic, but my internal world was now utterly, finally at peace. The door was my exit, and the law was my ultimate strategy. What does it feel like when the first step towards self-determination involves sealing your own family's fate? And will the freezing November air outside truly feel like freedom, or just a new kind of cold? Outside, the blast of November air was sharp, cold, and clean. It felt like a cleansing breath after years spent suffocating under their toxic dynamics. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer, physical release of suppressed anger and lifelong pain. I looked back at the warm glow emanating from the window, realizing that warmth was a lie, a pretense fueled by my financial asset. The house was not home. It was a prison where my integrity was constantly put on trial for their conditional approval. Now, I was free. I quickly got into my car. My first act of self-determination was decisive. I didn't drive away first, I called my lawyer. The words came out with perfect precision, detailing the corporate fraud, the use of the frozen card, and Amber's location. My voice was steady, fueled by cold, hard determination. The sheer weight of having chosen my business's solvency and my employees' livelihoods over my mother's emotional gaslighting felt like a ton lifted from my chest. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. This wasn't revenge, it was an act of brutal self-preservation, a required strategy. I provided the lawyer with the digital asset, the screenshots of the $300,000 transactions and Amber's triumphant Maldivian post. Every detail I gave was a testament to the skill and precision I used to build my asset, the very legacy they tried to exploit. As I finally merged onto the silent road back to Sacramento, the Christmas lights lining the streets seemed less oppressive, less of a forced connection. The fog of years of despair was thinning, replaced by the sharp, clear lines of a future built entirely on my own self-determination. I knew the storm had just begun. The emotional fallout, the public judgment, the inevitable calls from Margaret begging me for approval, all of it was coming. But the core pain of their betrayal was already priced in. I paid it with the final, definitive slam of the oak door. The lawyer was on the case, and my strategy was in motion. But can a cold, legal triumph truly heal the deep wounds left by family betrayal? And will my emotional solvency hold up when the news of corporate theft hits the headlines? 2 weeks later, the fight was legally won. Amber was facing charges, the corporate asset was secured. I should have felt total triumph, but the silence in my downtown apartment was deafening. The sweet taste of victory was strangely metallic, tainted by the heavy price of my self-determination. My business was safe. My team had their jobs and their Christmas bonuses, thanks to my cold, hard strategy and precision. But Margaret's final voicemail echoed, "You have no family left, dreamer." My emotional solvency was high, but my social connection account was utterly depleted. I saw Amber's tearful social media apology before it was deleted, a final, desperate plea for public approval. Not forgiveness from me. Their despair was real, but it was self-inflicted, born from years of entitlement and criminal determination to exploit my skill and integrity. I didn't regret the action. The alternative was financial ruin and sacrificing my legacy. My conscience was clear. Yet, I sat in the silent power of my office, a restaurant manager who'd successfully prosecuted her sister, feeling the profound hollowness where family connection used to be. My strategy now shifted from defense to reconstruction. I had to redefine my own meaning of family, my employees, my loyal customers, the people who actually respected the effort and precision that went into my asset. They were the true beneficiaries of my determination. The boundary I drew was clear and impermeable. It wasn't an act of hate, but an act of self-determination. It was the first step toward genuine peace, a peace that wasn't granted by conditional approval, but earned through painful, necessary integrity and the successful protection of my corporate triumph. I realized that their judgment could no longer touch me. The price for my solvency was the acceptance of my permanent isolation from my blood family. It was a heavy price, but necessary to uphold my legacy. The chapter closed, cold and certain. My new legacy was built on clarity and determination, not blood. But what does true peace look like when the only way to achieve it is to permanently sever your past? And is the life I built now strong enough to replace the unconditional, if toxic, connection of family? My strategy was simple, cold, legal precision. We didn't focus on the family dynamics or emotional pain. We focused solely on the $300,000 corporate fraud. The lawyer presented the irrefutable digital asset, the receipts, the flight manifests, the email trails. I watched Margaret and Amber in court. Amber, stripped of her entitlement, looked small and lost, her face a canvas of pure despair. Margaret, however, maintained a defensive pretense of maternal guilt, trying to shift the judgment onto me for initiating the case. The verdict brought a wave of vindication. Not because of the punishment, but because the truth I had fought for with my own determination and skill, was finally validated by a system outside their toxic circle. My integrity was legally affirmed. The case made local news. The headlines screamed, "Local restaurateur sues family over corporate fraud." My carefully constructed boundary was breached by public scrutiny. Suddenly, my triumph was shared with the world, inviting external judgment and opinion. The initial reaction was split. My customers and employees rallied around my integrity, but many strangers attacked me online, labeling me the Thanksgiving bitch who destroyed her family for money. Their narrative focused on connection, ignoring the corporate asset theft. This public judgment was the final test of my emotional solvency. Could I maintain my peace and self-determination despite the chaos? Yes. The clarity I gained from the confrontation was too strong to be shaken by strangers obsessed with the idea of family connection. Margaret publicly cut me off, claiming I was driven by despair and jealousy. Her public pretense of being the wronged mother was a final, desperate attempt at gaslighting. But it only solidified the new boundary I'd established. The silence from them was now truly liberating. I turned my focus back to my restaurant asset. My skill and precision rebuilt the $300,000 in reserves faster than anticipated. My legacy was not defined by my parents' house, but by the thriving business I built with my own determination. The cost of my triumph was the complete severing of my past. It was a cold, hard truth, an ultimate betrayal that had to be met with ultimate precision. I gained power and integrity, but lost the simple hope of ever having a true, functional family connection. I finally understood that Margaret and Amber were victims of their own entitlement, driven by despair over their lack of real skill. They needed my money because they lacked my determination. My solvency was a result of hard work, their power was built on dependency. The headlines faded. The public moved on. My life settled into a rhythm of work, focus, and genuine connection with my team. The emotional pain was replaced by a quiet, earned peace. The harsh truth was exposed, and I was finally free to be the person I had fought so hard to become. My ultimate strategy wasn't revenge, it was the ultimate act of self-determination. It was choosing integrity over forced approval, and solvency over toxic dynamics. And that, above all, was my most profound and lasting triumph. The memory of that Thanksgiving dinner will always linger, not as a source of pain, but as a monument to the day I finally recognized my own power and broke free from a lifetime of conditional love and endless entitlement. The story of the Thanksgiving table and the $300,000 corporate theft defined me, but it didn't defeat me. So, what happens when you use the same cold precision you used to build your asset to ultimately demolish the toxic legacy of your past? Stick around for my final thoughts on the true meaning of triumph and family connection. Months have passed since the courtroom drama. The holiday music in the restaurant is quiet, genuine, unlike the forced pretense of Thanksgiving. The solvency of the business is stronger than ever. I look around at my team, focused and happy. This is my true legacy, built on skill and determination, not toxic dynamics. My emotional clarity is absolute. There are no more knots of anger in my stomach, no more desperate cravings for Margaret's conditional approval. The ultimate betrayal served its purpose. It gave me the self-determination to finally heal. I accepted the pain and moved on, using precision in my personal life now, too. I've forged new, genuine connections, relationships built on mutual respect and my professional integrity. The permanent boundary against my blood family means absolute peace. Their desperate calls and final attempts at gaslighting stopped months ago. They finally understood the legal and emotional power of my strategy. The true triumph was not the court order or the recovered asset, but the quiet realization that my worth was never, ever dependent on their judgment or their toxic dynamics. My life now is a testament to what determination and skill can build when you choose integrity over conditional hope. I found my peace on the other side of my boundary. But what exactly happened to my sister, Amber, after the court case, and what is the final, bittersweet legacy of choosing self-determination over toxic family connection? The court case closed one door, but opened several others. The first ripple was the IRS audit. My family's use of the corporate card for personal luxury trips flagged my entire business asset for intense scrutiny. The price of their betrayal kept rising. This was where my core skill and precision truly paid off. I had meticulous records. My lawyer and I moved with military determination, preparing a detailed defense that isolated Amber's fraud from the rest of my legitimate business solvency. The second ripple was social. Margaret, unable to force me back into connection, began a public smear campaign. She used small-town gossip and social media dynamics to paint me as cold, avaricious, and lacking basic family hope and integrity. The old pattern of emotional gaslighting played out in the comments sections. Strangers lectured me on the value of family connection and unconditional approval. I had to build a mental boundary against the digital judgment, protecting my emotional solvency from the outside world's despair. The biggest crisis hit when my commercial lender, spooked by the media headlines and the audit, threatened to pull my line of credit, jeopardizing my entire legacy. Their fear centered on the perceived lack of solvency and the potential for more hidden family asset fraud. I used a final, powerful strategy. I didn't beg. Instead, I presented the lender with my detailed response to the IRS audit, highlighting the extraordinary precision of my accounting and the airtight legal framework that secured my asset from any future family entitlement. It was a demonstration of my professional skill and ultimate determination. It wasn't my family connection that saved me, it was the meticulous documentation and the financial integrity they never possessed. My competence was the shield and the weapon that ensured my final triumph. The lender backed down. My asset was secured. I realized that the fight had redefined my power. My mother tried to use guilt to control me. My sister used theft. I used legal precision and professional determination. The latter always wins. The clarity was worth the struggle. I was now completely free of their financial dynamics and their emotional judgment. The pain from the initial betrayal had hardened into a strong, internal boundary. I had achieved absolute self-determination, a rare and precious legacy. The ripple effect wasn't all negative. My strong, strategic defense cemented my connection with my business partners and my loyal team. We shared a newfound hope and determination. This new circle, built on integrity and shared skill, became my true, functional family. I accepted that the emptiness, the lack of a traditional holiday connection, was the cost of my triumph. I filled that void not with forced approval or toxic entitlement, but with the satisfying work of building my legacy with precision and unwavering determination. My solvency meant more than money, it was emotional, financial, and professional freedom. I realized their constant need for my asset was rooted in their own professional despair. My revenge was living well and competently, something they could never steal. I closed the file on the audit. Every detail, every financial precision, every minute I spent defending my business confirmed my ultimate triumph. The ripple effect had challenged me, but only served to reinforce my boundary and solidify my peace. The memory of the court case is a reminder. I was given a toxic legacy, but I chose to build my own, better one. I paid the price for self-determination, and the interest was true, lasting peace. I had successfully navigated the legal and financial fallout, turning the ripple into a wave of renewed determination. But with my legacy secure and my boundary established, how do I finally define my new family connection? And what does the future hold for those who suffered the consequences of their own entitlement? True healing wasn't the court order, it was the moment I realized the ultimate goal wasn't to gain their approval, but to no longer need it. My self-determination was validated not by their fall, but by the solid legacy I built with my own skill and determination. The constant, gnawing pain from years of emotional gaslighting and conditional connection finally subsided. It was replaced by a quiet peace and emotional solvency. I had successfully severed the toxic dynamics and built an impermeable boundary against their endless entitlement. The triumph wasn't the $300,000 corporate asset I recovered, but the profound clarity that my mother's actions were driven by her own deep despair and lack of integrity. My strategy was self-defense, not hate. I had to choose my own survival over their desperate hope. I am whole. My new family connection is genuine, built on shared skill and mutual respect. The final judgment belonged not to the court, but to myself, affirmed by the precision of my defense. My integrity is my shield. My legacy is my future. I found my peace and wholeness by choosing my integrity over their toxic connection. But what is the final, definitive ending to this story? What price did Margaret and Amber ultimately pay for their entitlement? And what lesson can you take from my journey of ultimate self-determination? The healing was real, but I wasn't naive. I adopted a permanent state of vigilance. My lawyer and I established airtight legal firewalls around my corporate asset. My ultimate strategy was to ensure that not a single piece of my legacy could ever be touched by their entitlement again. I formally changed my corporate documents, removing all familial access and ownership hope. It was a cold, necessary act of precision, turning my emotional boundary into a legally enforceable one. I ensured my solvency was fully independent of their toxic dynamics. The boundary extended to zero contact. No replying to desperate emails, no answering unknown calls. Every attempt at emotional gaslighting or pleas for conditional approval met a brick wall. My determination to maintain peace was absolute. My power was rooted in that self-determination. They had taught me that I had value only as an asset. I proved them wrong by wielding my skill and integrity to prosecute their betrayal and then securing my freedom permanently. The restaurant wasn't just a business, it was a monument to my strength. Every success, every new hire, every recovered dollar was a testament to the legacy I created, free from their judgment or entitlement. It was my true triumph over their manufactured despair. My ultimate act of self-determination was to accept the loneliness that came with the boundary. I realized that hope for reconciliation was an illusion that kept the door ajar for more pain. Severance was not failure, it was the final, necessary act of precision to achieve peace. I had secured my legacy with legal precision and emotional determination. So, what became of the architects of my pain? In the final chapter, I share the ultimate, chilling truth about my family's fate and the most powerful lesson in setting an unbreakable boundary. My new legacy was thriving. My restaurant received a prestigious local award, a testament to the skill and determination of my team, my new family. The feeling of pure triumph and earned approval was intoxicating. I thought the toxic dynamics were finally in the past. I was wrong. The backlash always resurfaces when their entitlement is challenged. Just as I accepted the award, a reporter cornered me. They had Margaret's new exclusive story, a desperate plea for public judgment, claiming she was the victim of my greedy determination. Margaret's narrative was the same old emotional gaslighting weapon. I made a small mistake for the sake of family connection, and Dreamer chose money over her own blood. She played the guilt card, the poor, grieving mother whose heart was broken by her cold, successful daughter. The old me would have crumbled under the weight of that public judgment. But my internal boundary held firm. My emotional solvency was too high. I saw the pretense for what it was, the final, pathetic attempt to regain power and exploit my reputation as an asset. I took a deep breath, meeting the reporter's eye with the same cold precision I used in the courtroom. My sister committed corporate fraud of $300,000, I stated, my voice steady. My integrity and the legacy of my business are non-negotiable. I used Margaret's own words against her. If family connection means providing unconditional approval for criminal behavior, then I choose self-determination and the rule of law. That is my final judgment. My response was viral. I weaponized my own story against their false narrative of despair. My triumph was complete. It wasn't about revenge on my sister, it was about ensuring my asset and my freedom. The backlash only served to publicize my boundary globally. The constant challenge was the final proof that my decision for solvency was the right one. The reporter then delivered the ultimate blow. Amber's sentencing was finalized. She received jail time and a heavy financial judgment. The harsh truth was fully exposed. Entitlement and fraud led to real-world consequences, an ultimate betrayal of their own hope. I felt a flicker of the old pain, the sister I used to know. But it was fleeting. The new clarity was stronger. The pain was the price of their choices, not mine. My determination had saved me from becoming collateral damage in their toxic dynamics. The ripple effect on Margaret was complete. She lost her main source of asset and power, me. The ultimate judgment was not the courts, but the cold reality of her life without my support. Her attempts at gaslighting only hastened her own despair. My integrity stood tall against their final assault of entitlement. The public saw the documents, the receipts, the evidence of my skill and my sister's corporate crime. My strategy of cold, hard facts trumped their emotional pretense and demands for unconditional approval. I accepted the permanent loss of my blood family. It was a heavy price, but the peace and solvency I gained were invaluable. The boundary was now steel, protecting my beautiful new connection with my professional family. My ultimate triumph was not the end of the war, but the fact that I survived their dynamics and built a better life. My self-determination had given me the final word, the lasting legacy of strength and precision. The truth, armed with legal precision, was the final triumph over years of gaslighting. But what truly happens to a family when one member chooses integrity over blood? And what is the single, most powerful piece of advice I can give you on building your own untouchable legacy? The day after the viral interview, the media storm still raged, but inside my restaurant, a different kind of power was building. It wasn't the cold, legal precision I used in court, it was the warmth of genuine connection. My team arrived early, ready to stand with me. My head chef, David, looked me straight in the eye. "We know the truth, Dreamer. Your integrity built this legacy. We are your family now, and nobody touches our asset." His simple statement affirmed my entire strategy and the value of my self-determination. That morning, the restaurant wasn't just a business, it was a sanctuary. My employees, whom my mother had once dismissed, were my truest allies. They understood my skill and determination because they shared it. This new family connection was earned, not conditional on their entitlement. The public judgment was still painful, but the collective support was my emotional solvency. When a new customer tried to confront me with Margaret's gaslighting narrative, my staff immediately intervened, professionally and with unwavering integrity. My lawyer, Sarah, called. The backlash is a sign you won, dreamer. They're using despair because they lost their power. Your only job is to maintain your boundary and focus on your skill. Your legal precision is your shield, your business is your sword. The toxic dynamics of my past family were designed to create constant pain and drain my asset. My new connection with my allies was designed to create hope and build my legacy. The former was built on betrayal, the latter, on shared determination and respect. My allies understood the high price of my peace. They knew the triumph was hard-won. They didn't offer conditional approval, they offered unconditional support for my integrity. That kind of connection is worth more than all the asset my old family tried to steal. I finally accepted that my blood family was a toxic situation that required the precision of a legal boundary. My team showed me that genuine family connection is a choice, not a birthright. This was my deepest self-determination, choosing my own source of power. The ultimate triumph wasn't Amber's sentence or Margaret's ultimate judgment. It was the quiet, confident knowledge that my legacy, my restaurant, my asset, my integrity was protected, surrounded by people who saw my worth without condition or pretense. My allies showed me that true connection is always earned, never demanded. So, what is the ultimate judgment on my sister, Amber, after her sentencing, and what final, powerful lesson about self-determination do I have for you before the screen fades to black? One year. It's been 1 year since the court ruled, 1 year since I made the final, irrevocable choice of self-determination over toxic connection. The dust has settled, and the silence isn't empty anymore, it's the sound of peace. My legacy is not just surviving, it's actively thriving. Success isn't measured by their conditional approval or the size of my recovered asset. It's measured by the strength of my internal boundary and the stability of my emotional solvency. I replaced the old, shaky foundation of guilt and pretense with concrete integrity and professional skill. My clarity is my greatest power. I no longer question my motives. My strategy was justified because the alternative was my complete financial and emotional ruin. The determination I showed in court now fuels every aspect of my business and personal life. I actively cultivate dynamics that uplift me. My new family, my team and close friends, operates on respect, honesty, and shared hope. There's no entitlement, no passive-aggressive gaslighting, just genuine connection. That, I realized, is what family is supposed to feel like. The memory of their betrayal is now a scar, not an open wound. The initial pain has served its purpose. It reminded me that love is not a license for theft, and connection must be earned with integrity, not mandated by blood. I am a survivor, not a victim of their despair. My legacy is focused on giving back. I mentor young female entrepreneurs, teaching them the importance of financial precision and emotional boundary. I want them to build their asset without the fear of internal dynamics trying to tear them down. This is my true triumph. I occasionally hear news of Margaret and Amber. Amber is serving her time. Margaret's life is defined by the judgment of her own making, stripped of the power she once had. There is no satisfaction in their despair, just a cold, factual clarity about the consequences of entitlement. The peace I feel now is unconditional. It's not dependent on their silence or the court's findings. It's dependent solely on my self-determination to choose integrity every single day, against any residual guilt or external judgment. This is the highest form of solvency. My ultimate triumph was the victory of my spirit over their toxicity. I used the tools they taught me, cold precision, determination, and skill, to dismantle their structure of betrayal and build my own structure of hope. My life is my own now, an unbreakable legacy. I learned that the toxic dynamics of a family only have power if you stay inside them. Stepping outside, establishing that firm boundary, was the single, most important strategy one ever deployed for my own life. It was the hardest thing, but it was everything. My choice to sever the blood ties was painful, but the act of choosing my new connection, my friends, my team, my partner, has been purely joyous. Family is built on respect, not obligation. That is the legacy I choose to pass on. I built a new life, brick by brick, on a foundation of integrity and self-determination. So, what is the single, most valuable lesson I can give you on transforming your own family pain into power? And how can you start building your own unbreakable legacy today? It's 2 years out. The distance isn't a consequence anymore, it's a choice. It's the architecture of my peace. The initial pain of the rupture has been polished away by the constant application of self-determination. I no longer feel the pull of old, toxic dynamics. The price of my freedom was the total surrender of hope for reconciliation. I accepted that Margaret and Amber would never offer genuine approval or integrity. Their world is defined by entitlement and perpetual despair. My world, built with precision and skill, is defined by growth and solvency. I philosophically redefined connection. Family isn't a genetic lottery, it's a covenant built on mutual judgment and earned respect. My chosen connection, my colleagues, my partner, reflect my hard-won integrity and support my legacy. They are my ultimate asset. The clarity I gained from their final betrayal allowed me to stop seeing them through the lens of guilt. Their actions were a matter of record, corporate crime. My response was a matter of self-determination, setting an unbreakable boundary with legal precision. Holiday seasons now arrive without the stressful pretense of the past. The empty chairs at my table are no longer a source of pain, but a symbol of the power I gained when I chose integrity over forced connection. I built traditions based on genuine hope, not obligation. My legacy is the story of surviving their toxic dynamics and building something better. I used my competitive determination and professional skill to turn their attack into my greatest triumph. I am the architect of my own life, and that is a lesson worth more than any corporate asset. The final resolution wasn't a handshake, it was the quiet, confident knowledge that I would never allow their power or judgment to diminish me again. The distance is absolute. The boundary is permanent. The solvency of my spirit is unbreakable. I want you to understand, your self-determination is the most valuable asset you possess. Protect it with the same precision and determination I used to protect my business. Don't trade your integrity for the illusion of approval or toxic connection. I look forward now. My past is a closed chapter, reviewed and filed under betrayal and legal judgment. My future is an open book, filled with the hope and genuine connection I chose. This quiet life, earned through the fiercest of battles, is my great peace. The true meaning of revenge wasn't seeing them suffer, it was successfully building my life so far out of the reach of their dynamics and their entitlement that they became irrelevant. That irrelevance, that is the ultimate triumph and the highest form of self-determination. Don't let their manufactured guilt be your anchor. Cut the chain. Use the pain as fuel for your determination. The distance is a gift, a promise of peace and unwavering integrity. You have the power to choose your own legacy. I found my serenity in the space I created between their toxicity and my legacy. Now, let's talk about you. What is your toxic boundary that you need to enforce? And what key strategy can you deploy right now to begin your journey toward ultimate self-determination? Enough time to turn a brutal rupture into a beautiful rebirth. I stood on the edge of the continent, watching the sun rise. This wasn't just a metaphor, It was the physical realization of my self-determination. The cold, toxic air of the past was finally gone. My restaurant, my original asset, had expanded. It was no longer just a place of business, it was a physical legacy of integrity and skill. Every new venture, every careful financial precision, was a defiant answer to my family's old, parasitic entitlement. I understood my true power. It wasn't the legal victory, but the determination to prioritize my emotional solvency over their conditional approval. I learned that true strength is the ability to walk away from chaos and build peace with deliberate, consistent strategy. The memory of their toxic dynamics now serves as a distant, clinical case study. There's no residual pain or guilt. The total, unwavering enforcement of my boundary, the zero-contact rule, has protected my new chapter from their cyclical despair. My new family connection is profound. It's a tapestry woven from shared values and mutual integrity. It stands in stark contrast to the threadbare pretense of my past. I exchange genuine hope and support, not manipulation or demands for an asset. I no longer mourn the family I lost, I celebrate the life I gained. The loss was not a betrayal of me, but their betrayal of the chance to be decent. This acceptance is the final layer of my triumph. I didn't just survive, I transcended their low expectations and judgment. The most critical takeaway: your value is inherent. It is never conditional on the approval of people who profit from your pain. Use your skill and determination not to fight them, but to build a life so strong that they become historically irrelevant. I'm looking toward new horizons, mentoring, community building, and expanding my legacy with people who share my vision of integrity. My every success is a quiet, confident validation of my choice for self-determination and personal precision. I realized I was not born into a legacy, I was born to build one. I took control of my own fate, using my traumatic past as the blueprint for my ultimate power and peace. The trauma of their judgment became the fuel for my determination. The boundary is no longer a defense mechanism, it's the foundation of my happiness. It ensures my emotional solvency and protects the asset that is my spirit. It keeps the toxic dynamics of guilt and entitlement at bay, permanently. I performed a final symbolic act. I took the old family recipe book, the one filled with their toxic pretense, and used one page to start a new fire in my restaurant's hearth. I kept the skill, but burned the connection. Triumph by fire. This is my new chapter. My rebirth is complete. My life is a testament to the fact that you can survive the worst betrayal and use the pain not for revenge, but for ultimate personal growth and self-determination. This is the meaning of my legacy. The distance is not a wall of hate, it's a canvas for my hope. It's the highest form of self-love, protected by determination and precision. Thank you for witnessing my journey from victim of dynamics to architect of my own power. I embraced the distance and found my rebirth. Now, the final, crucial question: how will you use the precision and determination I taught you to claim your own self-determination and build an unbreakable legacy starting today? You've witnessed my journey from a victim of toxic family dynamics to the architect of my own legacy. The fire was intense, but I emerged as steel. My ultimate triumph was never about revenge, it was about reclaiming my self-determination and building a new life based on absolute integrity. Lesson 1. Never confuse connection with conditional approval. True family is earned, not assigned. Lesson 2. Your solvency, both emotional and financial, is your ultimate asset. Protect it with fierce determination and legal precision. Don't let guilt or pretense drain your reserves. Lesson 3. A firm, unwavering boundary is not an act of hate, it is an act of self-determination. Use cold precision to enforce it against entitlement and gaslighting. It's the steel wall that guarantees your peace and your future hope. Lesson 4. Turn the pain of betrayal into power. Let their judgment of you be the fuel for your skill and your determination to build a life they can never touch. Lesson 5. Your true triumph is making them irrelevant to your despair and your success. If this story resonated with you, it's time to act. Don't wait for your final judgment to be handed down by others. Take control. Start building your own untouchable legacy today. Subscribe, like, and share your strategy in the comments. Your self-determination starts now. I've shared my strategy for ultimate triumph and self-determination. Now, tell me, which of the 5 lessons resonates most with you, and what is the very first step you will take this week to enforce your own unbreakable boundary?